For centuries, people have blamed one man for destroying the Library of Alexandria, Julius Caesar. The story is simple. Caesar set fire to the harbor, the flames spread, and the greatest library in the ancient world disappeared. It makes for a perfect story, but history rarely works that neatly. In 48 BCE, Caesar became trapped in Alexandria during a civil war involving the Egyptian royal family. To prevent enemy ships from being used against him, Caesar ordered ships in the harbor to be burned. The fire spread to nearby buildings and warehouses. And this is where the evidence becomes important. Ancient sources suggest that books or scrolls stored near the harbor may have been destroyed, but there is no reliable evidence that the main library building was destroyed in that fire. In other words, Caesar's fire may have destroyed some books, but probably not the library itself. And there is an important clue. The library appears to have continued operating after Caesar's fire. Scholars continued to work, texts continued to be copied, and the intellectual tradition of Alexandria continued for generations. The real disappearance of Alexandria's great collection was probably much slower. There was no single moment when someone walked into the library and burned everything. Instead, Alexandria experienced political instability, economic pressure, and repeated periods of conflict. The institutions that once supported scholars and libraries could weaken. And without money, scholars, and people dedicated to copying old manuscripts, the collection became increasingly vulnerable. Then, centuries later, another major blow came. In 391 CE, an imperial decree ordered the destruction of pagan temples across the Roman Empire. In Alexandria, the Serapeum was destroyed, and the Serapeum was associated with another important collection of books. Whatever remained, there was lost along with the institution itself. But even this was not the single moment when the Great Library disappeared. By this point, centuries had already passed. The collection had already been reduced by fires, political upheaval, changing institutions, and simple neglect. Papyrus itself was another enemy. Without continuous copying, even a perfectly preserved manuscript would eventually fade, crack, and disappear. And that may be the most important part of the story. The library may not have died in a single night. It may have faded away over centuries. And if that is what happened, then the real question isn't who burned the library. It's how much knowledge disappeared long before anyone realized it was gone.